Schechner here. I just finished filming a drum solo in which my feet are playing the following pattern in 7. The solo we're about to watch is actually a first take, but when I say that, I'm leaving out a huge piece of information. I had to do a lot of practicing. I played anywhere between 30 minutes to 4 hours a day for well over 3 weeks. So that's a lot of hours for a solo that lasts less than 3 minutes. The purpose of this video is I wanted to document the process of taking an idea that I couldn't play even a little bit at the beginning of the month and turned it into the following solo. On the 2nd of this month, I made the commitment to myself that on the 3rd, I'm going to start the process for creating this solo. And when the 3rd rolled around, I was really intimidated. I thought of every excuse I could think of in order to delay the process. So even though I didn't physically practice the drums on the 3rd, I did a lot of thinking about how I was going to approach this solo. And that's a really big part about getting quicker results, is having a plan before you sit down to practice. What I decided to do was just program the foot pattern into my drum machine. And this was great because then it gave my hands the freedom to just experiment, and I was able to decide whether or not I liked the way the hands sound in relation to the feet. On that first day of drumming, I experimented for around 20 minutes before I finally came up with a little theme that I liked. And at that point I did a couple of things. Number one is I wrote the pattern out. And this was great because then it allowed me to see how the hands and the feet work together. And the other thing I did is I programmed this into the drum machine. Once I had the part written down and programmed, I then slowed the drum machine way down to 55, and then I kept the feet going and only played the first 4 notes of the hand pattern. So here's a clip of my first time sight reading this on the 4th. So you might have noticed that the part I had programmed in the drum machine is a slightly different theme than I ended up using in the actual solo. And this is something that happened a lot. I spent hours working on a pattern, and then when I would work on another pattern, the first pattern didn't really segue as smoothly into the next pattern. Once I had my basic theme, then I wanted to think about ways to create variations. So some of the things that I worked on were just taking the theme and moving it to different sounds on the drum set. I also tried adding notes to the phrase, subtracting notes from the phrase, and I really wanted to think about dynamics. So I spent a lot of time on day 3 working on these ideas. So day 4 was a great day for discovery. I realized it's pretty simple to just play simple 8th notes with the right hand on top of the foot pattern. From there I thought, why don't I just keep the right hand going and sneak in the left hand in order to get 16th notes. As I was playing that, I started to play double strokes with my left hand, and now I have 16th note triplets. So finally I thought, why don't I just play double strokes with both hands, and now I've got 32nd notes. So by just thinking about simple 8th notes with the right hand, suddenly the idea of improvising became a lot less intimidating for me. Because of the discovery I made on day 4, I found that I was starting to be able to physically play the ideas that I was hearing in my head. Now that I had a ton of ideas, the next step was to just decide which ideas were going to stay, which ideas were going to get the boot, and also how to tie the different sections together in order to create a piece of music on the drum set. Well, it's really amazing how effective daily practice is, because I only took 1 day off, but I spent most of day 8 just trying to relearn everything that I had built up to this point. By this point, I developed the basic form, so I decided to focus my practicing on 3 different things. Number 1, just try to make it through without having to peek at my notes. Number 2, just try to get the individual parts as precise as possible. And 3, really try to work on the transitions to make those as smooth as possible. After spending the previous 4 days focusing on form, individual parts, and transitions, I got it to the point where I didn't need to look at my notes at all. But I can't tell you how many times I dropped my stick when I was going between the 2 snare drums, or how many times I accidentally hit my ride cymbal when I was trying to play the cowbell and all my attention was focused on my left hand. So I spent day 13 just focusing on ways of preventing these bad habits from happening. Well, as much as I'd love to sit here and say that days 14 through 20 were 100% focused on the task at hand, I actually found myself in a bit of a catch-22. because after playing these patterns for a long time, I started to develop more freedom. And with this freedom came new ideas, and I found myself focusing more on the new ideas and less on trying to just get the form as solid as I can. One thing I didn't mention earlier is I always try to give myself deadlines when I'm working on new ideas, because without it, sometimes ideas can drag on for weeks, months, or even years. So for this solo, I gave myself 1 month. Also, I made sure to film myself throughout this process. In addition, I kept a practice diary of my daily sessions. As I mentioned, I'd been filming myself throughout this process, but I'd only been using the built-in mic on the camera. And for whatever reason, on day 21, after a lot of warming up, I decided to just hit record on my Zoom, and I ended up with the solo that we just watched at the beginning of this video. So there you go. As you can see, by setting a goal, having a plan, and sticking to that plan to the best of our ability, we can learn to play things that only a short time ago we couldn't play at all. So I hope you found this video helpful, and I'll see you on the next one.